All right, everybody, welcome back to the still currently nameless podcast that we have going. We're trying to think of a name, hopefully during the middle of this podcast, if we can manage it. I'm out here in Meth Vernon, Verneyville, whatever you want to call it. There's a couple extra characters on for this week's podcast. We have Jacob Wallace, Ian Stanhope, and Kaylin Schaefer here on the show this week. And this one's going to be kind of a mess. I'm just going to call it right now. We're going to see what happens.
I could tell it was a mess, basically based solely on this lineup, because I know Jacob and Kaylin at some point in this podcast are just going to start hurling obscenities at each other.
I would
and
never.
It's not going to.
I would never.
Not going to end
You
well.
might hear some moist noises coming from the back window.
Never. Nope. Not a chance.
Yeah, so this one is probably not going to be the kids' podcast.
No, definitely not family
812
friendly.
After Dark.
This one's going to be NC-17. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, at least. Well, maybe not.
21.
At least R, maybe not quite NC-17.
Something.
I have an announcement to make.
Okay. Announcement incoming.
Oh, God.
Come on,
I received word last week that due to some comments made by Mr. Cam Lancaster, we have lost our sponsorship from Max Speeding Rods.
It's a shame.
But I'd like to welcome our new sponsor, 6 Speed. Only the finest in eBay tow hooks.
Attaboy.
Various other things of questionable quality to put on your car.
They make very rice quality products.
Look, dude, if it fits, it ships, alright?
If you want Chinese pop metal in your car, they're the people to go to.
No longer Max Speeding Rods. Don't use them
Nope,
anymore.
Max Speeding Rods fucking sucks. Had on Miata, took them off.
Fuck
Clunky
them guys.
coilovers.
Fuck.
Very
them guys.
clunky coilovers.
Trash.
They couldn't handle the roll bar because the car got too stiff and it shook the coilover apart.
Wait,
Oh my
seriously?
I'm dead serious. I'm absolutely serious.
How did that happen?
I can't explain it. Like, I put the roll bar on, the back end of the car got super stiff, and then just shook the shock collars loose.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that it would stiffen up the chassis. Usually that's what roll bars and roll cages do. But that much? Really?
It just shook them apart.
Miata life.
The shock collars on the coilovers themselves?
Yeah, it wouldn't. It would just the spring would come loose every time. I'd tighten them back up, run it for 10 miles, and then it would shake itself back loose.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what you get for owning a Miata.
Don't you ever putting Max Speeding Rods on your
Hey, I didn't put them on there. They came with the car. I'm on stock.
Nobody
blown out
really
shocks.
buys Max Speeding Rods. They just appear one day and they install them.
Yeah, they just show up in a box at your front door. It's like, what are these? Like, oh, these
Pretty
are kind
much.
of neat. I guess I'll put them on my car.
Pretty much. It's like an eBay muffler for Miatas. It's like it just shows up one day and suddenly your car sounds like shit.
Well,
Except it rides like shit instead.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Max
It is
Speeding
nice.
Rods.
Yeah. No longer the sponsor.
yeah, fuck them guys.
So,
So what pretty fun and interesting topics do you have for us today, Mr. Lancaster?
well, I've got a couple of topics lined up for us today. I've got kind of a little softball to lead off with, and then two that hopefully drive some interesting thought and conversation into the mix.
Or at least some very entertaining arguments.
Something's going to happen. And again, we don't know what this is. Our NC-17.
It's pretty bad.
It'll be a mess.
Can confirm.
So, the first topic that we have lined up is basically how do you approach a project car? And that's pretty open to interpretation, you know, picking one out, modifying it, fixing it. What do you do when you pick one up?
I think, honestly, it kind of starts with what condition the vehicle is in when you get it. Because obviously, if you say, like, buy a brand new Subaru WRX off the dealership
To
lot.
feed off of that, that's not really a project car. If it runs and drives, it's not a project. It's a car.
Well,
But is it? That's the question. That's where this is open to interpretation. It's like, do you take a car that runs, make it not run, and bring it back? What do you do with it?
I'm more old school with project cars in the terms of a project to me is a rusty shitbox you find sitting in the weeds somewhere that you have to haul home with 6 of your buddies on a trailer with no winch that barely fits the car.
Do you 6-speed tow hooks for that?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, of course.
They come from the factory on shitboxes.
Okay,
right?
okay.
I find something dumbass cheap that I can buy regardless of the condition, drive over to bumfucking Egypt where it is, and then drive it home with barely working headlights, no radio, no speedometer, no tachometer, literally nothing, and hope for the best. It worked out last time, so we'll see how it goes next time.
also running, 19 degrees of...
No, 21
Spark
degrees of spark advance.
At
And
idle?
Yeah, she's pretty bad. She gets like 5 to the gallon. And I
How
drove
did
it
you
to Mount Vernon.
drive?
Hey, you just do it.
I had 1 degree on my truck when I put the distributor back on, and it shook like a sumbitch.
Oh, it doesn't shake. It just dumps all the fuel. So like it gets 5-ish to the gallon.
I'm still doing better than my Suburban on its best day.
I mean, yeah, but 93. And then the supercharger sounds like it's about to explode. My T56 is half fucked. My rear end's got too much backlash in it. My tires are bald. My brakes leak. It's fucked.
So
that's a
perfect
project car.
combination.
That's a project car.
But I daily it right now because my Lincoln's a fuckhole.
The Lincoln was a good car.
Okay.
Everything worked when I sold it to you.
Okay, your issue is you sold it to this dumbass, and I did a bunch of grandma burnouts, and the brakes told me to eat shit, so...
Yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I didn't do a lot of burnouts in that car just because I hadn't looked at the brakes, and I didn't want to, so I just...
Trust me, you didn't.
Cam's dying inside because the Lincoln is now dead.
No, it's not dead.
It's not dead, it's just out of service for the moment.
Yeah, I had it running 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
Sat there and let it idle, get up to temp, shut her off. She's
Yeah.
fine. It just does not stop. Well, it stops, it's just...
Eventually.
Your brake fluid's going to be gone within 20 minutes of
Who needs
even
a coward
touching the
pedal?
brake, and then...
Coward pedal? Is that what
Coward
you just said?
Pedal.
Vince.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that's my answer. Buy something pretty much worthless and hopefully build it into something not worthless, but in my case, keep it worthless and then break it and then put it in my backyard and let it sit there for a little bit.
Interesting enough, I follow that same schematic with relationships.
Okay, okay.
Ugh.
Mint.
Yikes.
So where do you start with your projects, though?
Like,
I know you obviously, like you said, find the worst, shittiest thing you could possibly manage.
No.
Drag it home. But
find
then
the cheapest.
Okay, cheapest.
Yeah,
Not
it doesn't
worst.
have to be the worst.
Cheapest.
The cheapest. Like, I found...
Find the cheapest. The worst is free.
True.
That is a
That
good
is
point.
very true.
Like, I bought a $15,000 car for $6,000. I found that bitch on Craigslist, texted the dude within 20 minutes, and I didn't give a fuck if the frame was rotted out. I was gonna drive down to Tennessee and get it.
Well, to be fair though, that is like that was like literally your dream car,
Yeah, but it's a
which
fuck
I can understand.
It's like, it's a pile.
Yeah,
But it makes cool supercharger noises, and it's pretty fast.
yeah,
Ish.
ish.
When it wants to. When it doesn't bog.
It can be.
It can be, but the majority of the time you hit the gas and it tries to bog and throw you through the windshield. So,
Good thing those seatbelts work.
yeah. But what was your question? I'm an idiot.
So it's like, what basically is like your day one? Like, what's the first step you take in your new project? Like, where do
After
you
I
look
have it?
first? Yeah.
After I own it,
Ride the piss out of it.
I would say at least get it running and driving decently.
well, if it already runs, because we live
yes.
in Indiana and, rust, I crawl underneath it and make sure the frame's not rotted out, so whenever I'm doing a donut, it doesn't break in half.
And then he
Yeah.
sees how much you can take before it actually does break.
Exactly. I've yet to break it, and I've been kind of mean to it, so
So
thus far, we're good.
Yeah. So you kind of get an idea where the limit is.
Yeah, I've been not pushing the limit because my daily's broke, but as soon as the Lincoln comes back, dude, we're full fucking send.
It's kind of like a 50 Shades of Grey type situation.
Well, I don't
you get
know
a new toy, and you keep pushing the limits and see when it finally breaks.
Okay.
And then you put it in your backyard.
Hey, no.
Wait.
you know what?
Wait.
What's in the backyard?
My other
I don't
Cobra,
think we
I
wanna
broke
know.
that
Yeah, I
bitch
don't think we
numerous
do.
times. Then I blew it up, so then it sits in the backyard. Duh.
Technically, it blew itself up when the timing chain just did not want to be.
Well, no, here's the deal. Okay, it started making a timing chain noise, and then I just didn't fix it.
That was
So-
a fun story pulling that thing though.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a
I
little
just
side
didn't
tangent.
fix it, and it made noises for months, and I was like, hey, it's fine, who cares? And then, well, one night it wasn't so fine, and Ian had to pull me from a gas station to the shop, and yeah, that was a fucking endeavor.
That was fun. The scariest part was probably you almost getting T-boned by a Cummins.
10 out of 10, would not do again.
No, absolutely not. That was.
Yikes.
I basically pulled his car from the Hucks here in Mount Vernon to the
Mhm.
shop with a tow rope that I had in the back of my truck, and that was it.
Yeah, and he'd never towed a car, so I was like, please go slow and don't rip the sway bar out of it.
And
Thanks.
I didn't.
But
to
he
be
got
fair.
close. He got really fucking close.
To be fair, I think I misjudged the slack in the rope at that
Yep.
point. Because
And
it was
he
like when we were
said,
first taking off out of the parking lot. And also I hit the gas because also I saw a truck coming and I was like, oh, I need to get out in front of this guy, otherwise he's going to T-bone the Mustang. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it wasn't great. But hey, it was fine.
Nobody
Ish.
died.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't break it any worse.
True.
And now it's sitting in my backyard with the valve covers off and trash bags over it. And I might fix it at some point in my life. Maybe soon, maybe
I'll
not.
fix it Sunday.
Huh?
You're gonna fix it Sunday.
No, I ain't one of those guys. Shit. I'm trying to sell that thing so I can make my Terminator fast. What are you thinking? Gosh. Anyway, day 1, make sure it's not rusty. Day 2, put decent tires on it because, wow, all the cars I've bought were fucked.
Honestly, I think that's a thing that a lot of people overlook is like how much wheels and tires can affect how your car drives.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I drove that thing home 4 hours on all-season 225s.
Jesus.
All the suspension in the car felt real loose. The car just did not feel planted. And then I went home and put my summer 275s on it. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's completely driving a completely different car.
Oh yeah, completely different car. Now, granted, my 275s are like homemade drag slicks. They're still better than those all-season 225s. Honestly, terrible.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, did you look at like the day code on those all seasons?
Nah. I know they're dry rotted all the fuck.
So yeah, there you go.
You get 6 years out of the average set of tires, which, by the way, for most people who don't know, is what killed Paul Walker.
Yeah, because that Porsche thing was on the stock tires. Like
It was
the
on stock
original
tires that were
Wait,
70
seriously?
Yeah.
So the story is the guy that was driving the vehicle was a Porsche certified race driver.
Yeah.
They had just bought the car a few hours beforehand and were driving it home and testing it out. The tires on it were stock tires that were about 7 years old, and when they came around the corner, it was a corner that he could very easily manage. The driver could.
Right, under normal conditions.
Yes.
The tires
Going around
couldn't.
it, the tires lost complete traction and they spun into the tree.
That sucks.
Ouchie!
Yeah.
That's why you maintain your vehicles, kids.
Well, I don't know
That's
about
what-
all that.
Tires are the biggest part of a race car.
It's the thing
to be
that
honest.
literally connects your vehicle to the ground.
You can take a stock BRZ and put it around a track on junk tires and it do terrible, or put it around the same track on good tires and it do a phenomenal, like a world of difference between that.
Okay, I don't know about phenomenal. It is BRZ.
Significant, though.
Significantly better, but not phenomenal.
It's
V6
faster in the corners, not the straights.
Right.
V6 Camrys are faster in a quarter mile than those cars.
I'm pretty sure
We're talking
V6
about track and
Siennas are
corner.
faster
We're
in a
talking
straight
about-
line.
Yeah, right.
When I said
Well,
track,
that's the
I
thing,
meant
though.
corners on that.
I mean,
Yeah.
Say like you
completely
take
fair.
a stock BRZ on really good grippy tires versus a new Porsche 911 GT3 on junk tires.
it's probably gonna be the BRZ.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, it all boils down to driver
You
skill.
can't
too.
outdrive the vehicle you're driving. That's the big thing. Is you can't outdrive the vehicle. You can't outdrive its limitations and the limitations of the equipment that's on the vehicle.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
and then you break it. Ask me
No,
how
you
I
don't
know.
Well,
break
yeah.
yourself if you go try to outdrive it.
But it,
No.
yeah.
You just break rear ends like me.
Yeah, but when you're going around a corner doing 90, if the tires can't handle that, you can't handle that.
Well, I mean, yeah.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I mean, you could
I
handle
go
it
fast in a
into the
straight
ditch and down the embankment.
Or
Right.
the Nürburgring wall, and you're fine.
Because the Germans know how to build a wall.
Oh, we hit that point already. Okay.
Guys, it's a little too early for this. Can we dial it back?
I should have brought my Kalashnikov to this.
Oh God.
Yikes. Okay. How do you approach a project, you big dumb idiot?
All right. Similar to the way you do, Wallace.
Oh, gosh.
Except I drive it home. I figure out all the little nitpicky things, like interior stuff that's wrong with the vehicle, and little minor things that I can fix in like a few hours if I really sat down and tried with the right parts. That would cost me maybe less than $100 to fix, and then I still don't fix them 6 years later.
Me. Me.
I bought my Suburban in October.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 99 Tahoe at home with the exact same interior, every part I would possibly need for that interior of that vehicle, and I have yet to do anything with it.
Well, your Suburban also doesn't have oil pressure, so...
Don't be mean to her.
I'm not being mean, I'm just stating facts.
So, I also... The Camaro, I bought it 2 years ago. Like 2.5 years ago now. And
you've only made it worse.
No, shut up.
You know I'm right.
The window regulator does not... It's a common issue on those that doesn't want to go up and down correctly. Like the tracks don't want to work properly.
Same with my car.
Simple fix. Could fix it in a weekend if I tried. 2 years later, still haven't done it. I just avoid rolling down the passenger side window at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like the first time I rode in the car with him, I was like, man, he's like, no, don't touch that button. I was like, wait, why? And then he explained it to me. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
it.
haven't fixed that. Why?
So, once I
I mean, it's
figure
for the
out...
same reason that I still haven't fixed the window in the rear passenger side of my Tahoe. It's
You don't need
this
it.
is there. Is it?
True. That's very
Once I
true.
figure out all the little issues and don't fix them, then I go take the car out and enjoy it for a little while and see what it can actually do. And in the
And then
case
break it.
of, well, in the case of the Subaru, yes, the day after I bought it, the clutch went out.
Oh.
I knew the clutch was going out when I bought it, thought I had more time and had to take off on a hill, and it was just all downhill from there, literally.
But which side of the hill were you on?
Oh,
You're going
I
backwards
was on
down
the
or
side that
overwards?
burns clutches when you take off.
Okay.
Mint.
And then I spent the next week of my life after work replacing the clutch in that car.
Yikes.
And then it was all it just keeps breaking. It's been sitting in my driveway for 4 months.
No, it is a Subaru.
That's what makes a Subaru.
A Subaru.
Well, have you lost the head gasket yet?
No, actually, I don't know. It's got a weird overheating issue now.
How are your ring lamps looking, bud?
That's 2.5 on a 2.0.
Oh, fair enough.
It's still Subaru.
Yeah, I basically rag the hell out of the car, run it real hard, and see what its limits are before it breaks.
And then break it.
Actually, I haven't broke. I broke the Subaru. That's about it.
Well, ideally, you would try not to break it.
Yeah.
No,
It took me a while.
Well,
to
you're not a
break
car guy until you try to break your car.
That's fair.
And
That's
it's
why
the-
I've put 3 rear ends in my other car.
But
That's true.
But you're not a true car guy unless you try to break your car, and it's the only way home from the middle of bumfuck Egypt.
I've gotten flat-toed home numerous times. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. Technically, I didn't flat tow you home.
Well, you flat-toed me to here, and then we put it on a trailer that was way too small for the car, magically pushing it with
Was
like
it the
2
Corn
or 3
Pro?
wheels. Huh?
12-foot Corn Pro trailer?
No, it was
Oh.
like...
Oh God!
That's my experience with trailering cars.
Was it the
It's
same
a
trailer
12-foot
we
corn
put
trailer.
Noah's car
That's
on
better.
when we
That's
hauled
still
it
better
on?
than a U-Haul
That it
dolly
didn't fit on.
Yeah.
pulling a Subaru
Because
SVX
Jace
back on the
didn't,
interstate.
measure the trailer.
That
it
was
may
fun.
have. I don't remember.
Pat kind of
But-
touched on that last episode.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that
was
was a
scary.
fun time.
Yeah, my whole plan is take it, see what it can take, and then decide what I want to start, how much money I want to start putting in it, what I want to upgrade first, and go from there.
Yeah.
In the case of the Subaru, it more or less picked that itself when the clutch went out. So I put an XD Stage 1 lightweight flywheel in there, put it all back together, and then the ball joints came undone.
Oh,
while I was doing
we came
it.
undone.
Yes, did I tell you that story?
No, I don't think you have.
So I go
I
out
don't
to
think
work.
I've heard
I
this story.
go out to work one morning. It's like 20 minutes before I'm supposed to be there. I was like, okay, it's a nice day. I was gonna drive the Camaro. Went out and tried to start it, and it made a god awful grinding noise.
It's good.
So I was like, okay, well, I guess
That's
I'm
the
taking the
thing you want to
Subaru
hear.
today. So I hop in the Subaru and get it like a mile down the road from my house, and come around a corner, and I hear a pop and then a bunch of clunking noises. So I was like, okay, the CV axle came undone.
Nope.
Shit. I limp it into a driveway. I was doing 40 miles an hour when this happened, by the way. Limp it into a driveway, pull it in, and hop out and have somebody help me push it out of out of the way of the people's vehicles, whoever lived there. We go to push it, and the front wheel on the passenger side swings back and kicks into the fender. That's when I got up underneath there and realized the lower ball joint had come completely undone, and that's what ripped the CV axle out of my transmission.
So how did it come undone? Did like the castle nuts find its way off, or
The
what?
castle nut, the threads were rusted when I put it back on, and I didn't clean the threads up enough.
No.
And it had, I guess I
It just sheared all the
I had hit
threads
enough
off.
potholes through Evansville's roads that it had sheared the, what was
It
left
shoot
of
all
the,
the threads off.
what was left
Yeah.
of the threads.
It probably took
sheared
off the
it.
cotter pin.
It sheared the cotter pin flush with the ball joint and came out. And that started a process of, that night, I had the car, that side fixed that night. New CV axle in, new ball joint done. Checked the other side, it was about to do the same thing. I go to AutoZone 5 minutes before they close and buy the last ball joint they had in stock for that car. Go to put it on and undo the one nut in the hub, and it snaps the head off.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the next day, I spent like 3 hours drilling that one nut out. Went to go separate it and slide the ball joint out of it, and as I'm it's not, the ball joint's not sliding out like it's supposed to. So I'm trying to check it, and I notice there's a crack in the hub on that side. So I had to go track down a hub, and the only scrapyard that had one was in Louisville.
Oh God.
So I sent my dad's guys the next day down there to go get one of them out of the only hub they had in stock out of the scrapyard and bring it back so I could put it on that night.
Was that hub cracked too?
No, that hub was good. That hub is still on my car right now.
Okay, let's get, because that would have been like the ultimate case of irony, where you buy the new one and it's also cracked in the exact same way the one you were trying to replace.
And inadvertently through that, when it ripped the CV axle out of my transmission, it nicked the seal on the side of the transmission, the front differential, and leaked gear oil out for months.
Yeah.
And I got that fixed out like months later. Hall came down one night and helped me put the new seal inside of there, because that's how you set the preload on the front differential.
Just with that seal?
Well, the seal has a little like...
Or just a little access port?
It's a screw thing that goes into it, and it's like a hole in the middle for the CV axle to slide through. And you mark that, unscrew it, and then put the seal inside of it, and then screw that back on. But you have to make sure it's at the same mark. So
kind of like a steering shaft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like you just put the tension on
Yeah.
with that while locking it in alignment.
you twist it onto there, and whenever you twist it, you have to line it back up to where it was, because that's how you set preload on the front differential.
Yikes.
The more you know.
It's actually pretty simple. It's like Subaru, as complex as they are to take individual things off, they are incredibly simple to do major things on, like component replacement. The motor can be taken out in 30 minutes and put back in 30 minutes. Transmission can be the same way. Turbo, 5-minute job. There are modular pieces that were designed for the easiest replacement of that modular piece.
I feel like a lot of Japanese cars are like that
Now,
too, though.
Through that, it's also a nightmare to do anything smaller than that. Like if the motor's in the vehicle, doing head gaskets is impossible. You have to remove the motor to do the head gaskets on it. Or fuel injectors, you have to remove everything on the top of the engine to get to.
They basically
smaller
inverted
things.
the car maintenance process.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
So the bigger
really think
things
about
are
it.
easier to do, and the smaller things are more complex. Yeah.
Subaru.
Yeah, it's what makes a Subaru
A Subaru.
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 Gross.
But yeah, it broke on me a lot. It still breaks on me a lot.
Yeah.
But I still love the car. It's a very toxic relationship because it's so fun to drive when it wants to be functional on the road.
But once it operate as a vehicle and not
Well,
just a yard art.
Like, I love my Camaro more than anything. That is my favorite car. But it is not as fun to drive as my Subaru. There is no comparing the two. It's just so much more fun and enjoyable to be in that Subaru, to be shifting gears, hitting corners in it, hearing the turbo, the exhaust, and just the way the car drives, the way it feels. It's so much more fun than my Camaro is. But I love the Camaro so much more than I love the Subaru.
It's twisted.
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact of that is you love the car itself more in terms of the Camaro, whereas with the Subaru, you actually love driving it.
There's more functionality to it. The Subaru is more fun for cornering and for running off-road, like the rally stuff that I actually do in the car.
Mm.
Whereas the Camaro is the faster straight line car.
Yeah.
And it does so.
Facebook's listening to us.
We just got a notification from Facebook from Max Speeding Rods.
It's
on my
holiday sale.
Facebook, and I don't buy coilovers. I've never looked up coilovers in my life.
They're always listening.
That's nuts.
They are. They really are.
They're looking.
Max Speeding Rods, we are sorry. You are Big Brother. We understand now.
But you still won't sponsor us.
Everybody put Max Speeding Rods on your car right now. It's the only way to be safe.
I wouldn't call it safe in Evansville.
Especially if you have a roll bar.
Shit.
Ugh.
Anyway, now that you've had your half an hour long-winded response to a simple fucking question, I think it's Ian's
Well, we
turn.
went off track on what broke on my car.
We
and
did
just
hit a
the
couple of
process
tangents
that.
there.
I mean,
It's all right.
that's exactly how
Yeah.
the podcast works.
It
It's
really
you say
is,
one
yeah.
thing, and then suddenly the whole show is
Yeah.
just other shit.
Yeah.
To
But
summarize,
fuck
to
that
summarize,
guy.
and finalize,
Yeah.
to make a final statement, I buy it, I find the little things that are wrong with it that I can fix easily and then never do, and then I take it out and test it, push it to its limits, and then enjoy the car until something does break and I have to fix that. And then at that point, I realize I still have to fix all this other small things, and I get overly loaded with that. Fix the big thing, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that next weekend, and next weekend never comes until it breaks again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Car guy stuff.
Car guy stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of how people get involved with like modifying their car and doing all that stuff. It's just they kind of just jump headfirst into it because there's really no other way to do it. You don't get to like practice on other people's cars.
Yeah.
You have to kind of just go.
Well,
and
actually, I technically do.
Unless
unless
you were unless you were the type of kid who was like helping your dad do oil changes and shit when you were a kid.
right. I mean,
I wish I could have just done oil changes as a kid.
yeah.
My dad's not a mechanic, so.
My dad is not a mechanic.
Well, he's mechanically inclined, but he is not a.
My dad is not that.
He's
My
not a
dad's a
mechanic in
mechanic.
title.
And oh lord,
My dad is inclined to barbecue. He's very good at that.
I just think
Does
I
not
remember
modify
having to
cars.
come down here and help do fix the front bumper of a van that I completely destroyed in a prank that I thought was going to be funny when I was 6.
Oh
You guys want to hear that story?
no! We can circle back to that.
All right, we'll circle back to that. Ian, you go ahead.
Okay, well, in terms of project cars, I don't really have a lot of experience on this because I've never really owned a project car, done any like major work to a car aside from just like maintenance stuff. Which hopefully all of that will be changing soon. I do plan on buying an actual car for myself to work on.
Secrets.
Which hopefully, if my bonus check ever decides to clear, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd say in terms of projects, obviously depending on the condition, like get it running and driving, like get it to where it's at least like safe to drive. And then at that point, I'd say just drive it around for a while, get a feel for it. And I think you learn the most about a car whenever you are actually driving it, not necessarily beating the shit out of it, but also if you're just like driving it like back and forth to work. It's like you like hit a couple of corners on your commute and it's like, oh, my rear end feels kind of loose, or it's like it feels like it's got a lot of body roll or something like that. So it's like, okay.
That's more or less how I found out my Subaru was unreliable. Was it didn't break when I ragged on it, but it broke every time I didn't. So that's how I figured that out.
But it's just like, I don't know, I think everyone always has this ideal vision of what they want their project car to be.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes, obviously, stuff like that changes. It's like, oh, I'm just going to do this, 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 and this. And then you actually drive it for like a month, and it's like, okay, I actually want to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
But
I think really the first step in anybody's project car procedure is, what do you want to do with that car?
True. Philosophy of use.
That's one thing that we overlooked really talking about
it's like,
what's your plan for it in the end? And that changes throughout the process of driving it, too, like Ian said.
Like, do you want to... It's like, do you want to have a really awesome daily that's fun to drive? Do you want to have a dedicated drag car or a drift car? Or do you want something that you're going to take to, like, time attack events or something like that?
It's like, that majorly affects the build.
I mean, that absolutely affects the build, and I think it's like...
Do you want to make the monster truck Miata or the corner Miata?
Oh, I'm not doing the monster truck Miata. Not unless I get one for a screamingly low price.
Hey, you could just all-wheel drive swap it like Gingium's doing.
Oh, I'm watching that. That is
I am too. It's actually really badass what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it kind of makes it seem a little bit more simple than it is to like make like imagine a frame jig, basically.
Yeah.
Because it looks so simple, but if you fuck up the measurements at all, it's like your car's never going to.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. As an engineer, like tolerancing is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's
And I think that's a lot of like kind of the stigma about modifying cars too. It's like to most people who don't have like really any mechanical inclination.
They're horrified.
They're horrified of like, oh god, if I like snap this bolt off, I'm gonna have to go to a dealership and they're gonna charge me $1,000 to fix it or something
right,
like
and
that.
It's even a little bit scarier because they're thinking, well, I can drive the car to the dealership right now. I can try to fix it. If I screw that up, then I have to tow it to the dealership.
Right,
and that's just extra cost.
See,
and that's where people get hung
being
up.
on the other side of that and being a mechanic, if you know something's about to break, you're dreading it the whole time because you're like, oh god, I don't want to have to fix that on my car.
Exactly.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to, like driving my Subaru when the clutch went out. That was the one thing I didn't want to have when I bought the car.
But yeah, it's like on the surface though, if you really think about it, it's not to like someone who's never really done anything with cars, even like some of the simplest stuff can be super intimidating. Like honestly, it's like when I was first doing research about like building cars and stuff, it's like, oh, putting coilovers on it, and I like hadn't read it. I was like, man, changing out suspension components, that seems really, really difficult, and like there's a lot of shit that can go wrong.
It's like 4 bolts.
But then but then that's the thing, I'm getting to that. But then I went to Jacob Hall's shop with Pat at him and me, and then we changed out the coilovers on Pat's Forester. We did it in like maybe an hour and a half between the three of us, and it was like 5 bolts.
See, within a lot of that, people learn differently. I learned by hands-on. I can't learn by sitting there reading something.
Yeah.
I can read. That's one of the things I've learned through working for Chrysler. Sitting there and reading the procedure they wrote up for how to do it, even with the pictures, doesn't tell me how to do it. I can't just look at that and understand how to translate that to the real vehicle next to me. Mm-hmm. However, if I jump into it and start doing it, either I'll figure out what I don't know already, or there's somebody next to me that can show me, hey, I'll be like, hey, show me how to do this. And once he does that, I know how to do it now, and I can keep moving on with the project.
And that's one nice thing about being in a car, I never really know what to call it.
The car club.
Yeah,
community.
It's like club community. But it's like having a bunch of people, guys like us and ladies.
Yeah, there's always somebody.
Especially people who are like extremely mechanically inclined. Like Jacob Hall, that guy is literally a genius when it comes to shit like
There's
this.
always somebody like at arm's reach that knows what they're doing with that vehicle, that particular job, that can help you.
Or at the very least has a much better idea of what to do than you do.
Within, like, even speaking of Jacob Hall, I had a Subaru WRX come into Audubon when I was working for them.
Yeah.
It had been there for, been to Subaru Romaine for 3 months. They couldn't figure out why it was misfiring. Had been at our dealership for 3 months, and our technicians couldn't figure it out because they knew nothing about Subaru. I jumped into it, pulled it in. I remember from Hall telling me mass airflow sensors are a common issue with misfires on those. Unplugged that, car still did the same thing. I pop started it when we were towing it into the building, and it ran, but really rough, and then died. So I pulled it in, assisted the technician that was working on it, and eventually took over the whole job after he gave up on it. And within 30 minutes, I had the timing cover pulled off and checked the timing on it, and it was out of time on one of the cams. That's how I figured that out. It was as simple as, it took 6 months for them to for everybody else to not know what it was, but knowing the right person and having the right
information.
Yeah, information. It took me 30 minutes to figure out what the issue with that vehicle was, and then the next day I repaired it. I put a timing belt on it, started it up. It ran rough, but it wasn't doing what it was doing before. And through that, I called Hall several times that day to figure out different little things about that particular job that I didn't know. One of which was where to check the engine code for the motor. I found out through that somebody had swapped 2.5 liter out for a 2 liter.
Mm.
Once I knew that, I double checked that the cams were the correct cams, the timing belt was going to fit those cams, put it all together, started it up, and it ran rough. And I remembered the battery had been disconnected before I started the job. When you flash a Subaru ECU with a custom tune, if the battery loses contact, you lose the tune. So somebody had tuned it for the correct motor, and the battery had died, and it started the whole process.
So it was running for a 2.5 instead of a 2.0.
Yeah.
And even if it was an aftermarket tune, it was then going back to a factory tune.
It was going to the factory tune for the factory motor when it had an aftermarket motor with 2.5 liter cams on a 2 liter block with U20 heads.
Yeah.
And through that, I told the customer came down there. He was ecstatic whenever I sat down and talked to him and told him, hey, I know what's wrong with your car now. I looked at it. I put the new timing belt on it, got it set in time correctly. It's still running rough. You need to go to this person to get it tuned. And he was just ecstatic that for 6 months he hadn't had his vehicle that he'd been paying for. But one person with the right knowledge and connections looked at it, could tell him exactly what he had to do to get the car back to where it needed to be. Just by spending a half an hour with it and making the right phone calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that only comes with experience.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's
For
like
sure.
one of the things
Yeah.
you said was just like making sure that the timing was done right. Like, that's
Yeah.
this should be a very basic first thing
Yeah.
that you look at if a car's not running right.
If you don't know what you're looking at, it's not going to make any sense to you.
Right. Or if you're kind of just relying on like, oh, let's plug it in and see what it says.
Yeah, because
it's like you're never going to think like
we couldn't. I
the
tried
basics.
pulling codes out of it first, and I couldn't pull codes out of it. The vehicle wouldn't send me any codes for it because the ECU was for a 2.5 and it wasn't communicating correctly.
Yeah.
And it took me. It was as simple as 30 minutes later. I had the timing cover pulled off, had it sit top dead center, and I knew how to read the timing marks where none of the other technicians did. So I knew that every cam was in place except the passenger side exhaust cam. It was out of time by a few teeth. And that's what told me it needs a new timing belt on it, and we'll go from there and figure out if that's the whole issue or if that's a symptom of the original issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it pretty well covers kind of like, and that kind of relates to like a project car. So they could pick that thing up and it wasn't running right. It's like, I don't know what's wrong with it, but trying to figure out exactly, it's like just kind of stepping through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of just what it is.
Just diagnosing problems is a lot of what working on cars is, honestly.
That's
Yeah,
my whole
especially
job.
if you're buying a car as a project. 'Cause
Yes.
typically, you don't buy a brand new car that runs and drives and everything's perfect on it, and then
Right.
choose to take it apart. You're probably picking up a car that somebody else has been messing with, and you gotta rework through theirs
Yeah.
to figure out what initially caused everything.
With buying a project car, you don't know how much of them, the person you're buying it from, how much truth they're telling and what they're not telling you.
I know there was less rust in the description on my Miata than there was
Yeah.
in actuality,
And see, that's the way I look at
and less
every-
mouse nests in the frame rails.
You'll
You
have
still, do they tell you about the hot tub in the back?
Well, I mean, that just happens when it rains. Then it's not hot; it's cold. I
cold.
gotta change it.
I can imagine it's very cold.
But that goes along with the same. I look at every situation in life with the same mentality. There's three sides to every story. There's one person's side, there's the other person's side, and somewhere in the middle there's the truth. And you have to take everything with a grain of salt until you conclude what the actual truth is, or what you can deduce from the information you've been given as the truth.
Yeah.
And that goes it's exponential with vehicles because you're spending a lot of money sometimes on a vehicle and you don't know how much of that's the truth and what they're not telling you goes along with it. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt and make your assumptions and judgments based off of that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. Because I mean, if you just kind of go into it just bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and just gung-ho,
Yeah, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and a stack of cash in your hand.
Yeah.
you're probably going to get taken, and you're going to
Yeah.
fall out of being interested in cars pretty fast.
For sure.
Also,
'Cause-
I guess they don't start with Subarus.
That.
Don't buy cars in the dark.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Don't buy cars in the wet either.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because rainwater can hide a lot of imperfections in paint.
Yep.
And body
looks
work.
great right now.
Buy a car
Yeah.
without paint. I'm telling you, just buy a car without paint and you're fine.
But then it's probably rusty as all hell.
Well, no, I'm talking like bedliner or something. You'll be alright.
Not everybody's going to want to buy a Jeep, though.
Who said anything about a Jeep?
Let's be entirely honest here. If you think of a car having rhino lining on body panels, it's probably a Jeep.
What if I want to ride on?
Well, no, dude. I've seen like newer Dodges and these big dumb high school fucks get together with their buddies. They're like, I got a great idea. Let's rhino line my whole fucking truck. And
Windshield and all.
Oh, God.
I mean, yeah.
You know
I've seen it
what's
too.
great about those Dodge trucks that are Rhino line the whole thing? It's like it's completely rust free until the whole thing just evaporates me. And so you just get this Rhino line Dodge Ram.
Yeah,
It's
but
like it's still
honestly,
gonna rust.
Yeah,
honestly,
no,
Just
yeah.
underneath it.
Yeah.
It's
But
basically
honestly,
like a...
Rhino liner is stronger than the material Dodge makes their trucks out of.
Can't confirm.
Yeah, let's be entirely
You look at those things hard enough and they didn't start rusting.
Can confirm.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good kind of roundup on as far as like starting into a project, like what
Yeah.
expect, look out for, kind of approaches to it.
Well, damn, it only took us 30 minutes to get through the first one, boys.
I mean, there's a lot of super talk, you know.
That's what podcasts are about, though. It's not necessarily about just going through a bunch of discussion topics.
No, it absolutely isn't. It's just
Well,
just
duh.
Oh, do you guys want to hear the story about the time
No!
I fixed a bumper on my dad's van? All right, so there I was. I'll make this one quick. All right, 6
God
years
damn it.
old. We had a work truck bed sitting in the front of our driveway, and my dad pulled his freshly restored 1979 custom van down there in front of
Oh,
us.
so it was like a nice van and not just like a
It was-
Dodge Grand
Oh,
Cherokee.
yeah,
I was
that's
gonna say
exactly
like
right
late
here.
70s.
Yeah, I was thinking like that.
Fully
Chrysler.
restored custom
It's not
van,
the
had a
same
full
bag.
like interior captain's chairs that swiveled around, a table that went in the middle of it. Very, very nice looking van. He was a body man. That was one of the big things he did was body work. Had freshly painted this thing. Every line was perfect on it. It was
Sounds like it was
flawless.
past tense.
It was.
It was, yes. Operative word there being
It was flawless. And then he parked it in front of a truck work bed one day. And I got the bright idea. I was like, there's a truck bed here, there's a chain here, a log chain here.
Oh,
And
no.
the bumper is 3 feet away from it. I know how to hook up a chain. I think it'd be pretty funny if I hooked it up to the bumper and didn't tell him.
Oh my god.
You have to see like the visual in my head of him driving down the highway, dragging this truck bed behind it.
Oh, so it was the back bumper, not the front
No,
bumper.
the front bumper.
Wait,
I don't know
what?
why I thought that.
Underneath the whole car.
I was 6 years old. I, for some reason, thought hooking up to the front bumper would cause it to drag behind the vehicle, and it would be glorious. It would be him blissfully unaware that there was a 7,000-pound truck bed, bouncing around the highway behind him.
That is
So
actually
I
a pretty
hooked it-
funny image, not gonna
So
lie.
I hooked it up. I was 6, mind you. Hooked the chain up to the front bumper and forgot about it. He didn't drive that van for 2 weeks. And I distinctly remember the day that he went outside to start that van up. He's like, hey, I'm going to town. I was like, okay. So I walked out there on the front porch, realized what instant terror when I realized what vehicle he was going to and what I had done. So I quickly turned around and ran back into the house and sat in the chair in the living room and stared at the TV as I heard the most god-awful crunching noise of my life. It was the most terrifying sound ever. And then I heard, God damn it! And I started laughing. I couldn't help it. He walks in the door, and I just stared at the TV. I had to be so obvious that I knew what I had done.
The 6-year-old is sitting there like a fucking just like a statue, like.
I was laughing, mind you, still.
Oh.
There were cartoons on. I tried to play it off as that, but that didn't work too well.
Of course it didn't.
So after I got the worst ass whooping of my life,
I was gonna say, I bet your dad. I'm sure you got your ass beat for that.
he told me the next day I had to go down there and help him straighten the front bumper out. And I cannot describe the banana peel of that bumper when that truck is. It was curved around the front of the vehicle in like a C shape.
Jesus Christ.
Oh.
I remember having to fix that bumper for the next 3 Saturdays of my life.
I
Was
knew
it
you were
worth-
dumb, but like,
Would I do it all again?
No.
Yes.
Why?
I mean,
Oh Lord.
it's funnier the second time around.
It's gonna be even funnier when I'm 23 getting my ass beat for it. Because now I might retain the information on how to fix that.
Yeah. Experience.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh
Okay,
God.
great story. Next.
Okay, moving on from that story.
God.
Another one of the questions I kind of wanted to pose for the guys that we have here today was basically, what does it take for a car to earn modified status? Like, when does a car not just be like a car with mods on it, but it's modified?
That really depends on the car.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
It depends on your, like you said, it depends on your definition of modified too.
Well, see, there's a list. For me, there's modified is the introduction, built is the next step up, and fully built is the final stage. Fully built is like
Race car.
like tube chassis,
like dedicated race car.
weight cut, like completely gutted, weightless. Everything's modified, a heavily performance built motor, driveline, everything is perfect on that.
Basically nothing
Tubular-
is stock
yeah.
at that point.
Nothing, except the VIN number and a few select body panels. That's the only stock part of it.
Yeah.
Fully built is drivelines built up, but it's still a streetable car. Like, it's not completely built for one dedicated purpose. You can still drive it to the
You have a
grocery
heater
store.
in it.
Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I hate about Mustang, guys? I can't tell you how many times I've seen it's a fully built X or whatever, and it makes like 600 horsepower, and it's half rusted out, and it's got a fucking short throw in it, and a
Factory
stock
weight
rear
reduction,
end,
brother.
and huh?
Rust is just factory weight reduction.
I mean, if you're
Nature's
fucking
weight
dumb,
reduction.
sure, but I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's like multiple stages of, like, FBO is the introduction to modified, to me, means full bolt-ons.
Like the full kit.
Yeah,
Basically, where
like
there's
intake, exhaust, and a few other bolt-ons here and there to
Suspension.
add minor performance things. That's modified.
But see, that
Built.
also is different depending on the car. Like with his Camaro, you can do intake cam, heads, that's bolt-on type shit. With the Mustangs, underdrive pulleys.
$10,000 and 6 months in Oklahoma City later. Shout out
Okay.
to you, Stallings.
Kansas
Okay,
City.
every single fucking intelligent person outside of Stallings, and him being intelligent is a stretch. But anyway,
Love you,
anyway,
buddy.
Yeah, I love you so very
We love you,
much.
Stallings.
Just kidding. Like with my car, for example, bolt-ons. I can put a pulley on the supercharger, cold air intake, exhaust. That's really it. I mean, that's the stretch of it.
So
honestly.
do you call it modified with just those on it?
Yeah, I'd call it modified.
Okay.
I would. Like, my car, it's got cold air intake, exhaust, does have a rear end swap, pulley and tune. Modified in my eyes.
See, modified to me is full bolt-ons. Like intake and exhaust, that can be considered modified. Like suspension work, modified. Built, to me, goes deeper than that. I don't know if it's because I work in the field, like mechanics. Built to me means deeper inside of the driveline or the vehicle itself, like built motor, built transmission, that are built to put out more more power or could handle more power because they've been built to do it. That's built to me. A built car could have those components in it, but still be completely stock everywhere else. Like, it's still streetable. You could drive it to the grocery store on the weekends to get groceries, but you could also take it to the track and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's built to me. Fully built is gutted. Everything on the car is built for one purpose and one purpose only. Like, driving it to the grocery store would hurt the car more than it would help you.
And it's also probably illegal because once you go to that point, you kind of dance the line of street legality.
Slap a Volkswagen VIN on there, you're good, man.
You're in Indiana, and our
It's
county, they don't
Sabra.
give a fuck. They don't care.
Well, I mean, but that's specifically for us. There's obviously a lot of other places where it's like if you do stuff like that, you are going to.
I mean,
if you put a cold air intake on your car and it's not carb legal, California will have a shit.
Fuck
Especially if
California.
exhaust
fuck
and stuff.
California.
Yeah.
But Drew Cook, he got his car VIN certified and everything at the DMV because he bought it from a different state. They got to do
Right.
the VIN check and stuff. He didn't have front fenders on it, a hood, a bumper. I mean, anything.
Yeah.
Loud as
Yeah.
fuck. Full
Indiana,
exhaust.
all you have to do is have a police officer come by and sign a piece of paper that says
You don't even have to have a
inspected it.
cop.
Well, you have to, if you buy it out of state, you have to have a cop sign
I
off
didn't.
on it.
I think that's Kentucky. I think Kentucky you have to have a cop inspector.
Really, because in India, the last
I think
time
in
I
Indiana, it's just,
No,
it has to be
I
a
brought my
BMV
car from Tennessee.
It doesn't have to be not
And
stolen.
a few days later, took it to the
Pretty much,
DMV,
yeah.
and all they had to do was
Not
one of the
stolen and
workers
not
walk
actively on
outside,
fire.
take the title that had the VIN on it, and look at
Check
the
the
VIN,
VIN,
and
sign
say,
it.
it's the same. All right, we're good. And it's like,
Yeah.
Okay.
For all you know, this car could be literally completely half fucked, open headers, dumping all the fuel on nitrous, making 70,000 horsepower.
It's like, cool.
They don't care in
No inspection out here.
Yeah, they don't give half a fuck.
You go
Logan's
across state
car?
lines, though, to Illinois, and you're fucked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, trust me, yeah.
Fraser's car, open headers, no paint, no hood.
Oh yeah,
That was such a fun
that
car.
Yeah, it was fine.
the
No one
Fox
cared.
body. That thing was pretty badass, honestly.
Dude, it
I
was
want
like,
one now.
slow
I
as
still
much.
want
It
one.
was the literal definition of a shit box, but it was cool.
Dude, that was
God,
the
I
shittiest
drive
shit.
the hell out of that car.
You're
I
so
could.
welcome. He wasn't in love with that car until we did donuts in the middle of Green River Road at like 1
In
a.m.
the middle of Mexico at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It definitely was not Green River
Right by
Road.
the Menards in Mexico, guys.
It wasn't Menards. It's that
Green Mexican
Myers.
River Road.
Same. See, it's the same
Is that
parking lot.
So that's what those black marks are.
It's like the same
It's
parking
from,
lot.
it's from the car
Yeah,
factory,
it's
just
same
dumping the
thing,
green
yeah.
slime into the river. Green Mexican River Road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was awesome. 10 out of 10 would do again.
It
and you're
sounded
so
like
welcome.
I was sitting on top of an artillery cannon whenever he downshifted, because it was open headers right below the floorboards.
No,
And
it was
it was
crazy.
so loud.
Uh-huh.
It shook the whole car.
Oh, I know. I rode in that car.
Top fuel
And I
dragster
just,
at 2,000
I just
RPM.
wanted to tear shit up. I want one so bad that I can tear the shit up in.
The one night he brought that thing to the car meet in the parking garage, I thought I was gonna go deaf. That thing was loud.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. I fucking loved it.
Yep.
Ugh, I
Can't
miss that
confirm.
car.
Yeah, you should have heard this motherfucker screaming. We're on definitely not Green River Road in Mexico. We're going along, and I say, you know what? We're doing donuts right here. I downshift to second gear and clutch kick this thing and spun it around like 3 or 4 times right in the middle of the fucking street. You know, who gives a shit? This dude over here in the passenger, whoa! Whoa! Fuck yeah! Whoa! I'm like, dude, this is regular for me. What? Like, I do this shit all
This
the
is
time.
Tuesday.
Yeah, this is just a regular Tuesday. Like, what? This dude. And now he's in love with him.
Oh, God.
You're welcome.
I went home that night and spent like 3 hours trying to find one cheap on Facebook.
I mean,
luck.
that is the world the Fox Body lives in. Is cheap on Facebook.
No, it's either cheap or it's like a rare one-of-one thing that sells at Meekum for like $200,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is
and-
no in between for the Fox body.
No,
Basically, no. Yeah.
And the majority of the times, the owners are like, I know what I got. I want $2,000 for this car with no paint, no exhaust, a slip-link clutch, dumps all the fuel. Logan's
Fucking
car?
bet.
Logan,
You didn't
Fraser's
see this
Fox
car in
car?
high school. I was king shit.
Fraser's car, the black primer, the clutch was slipping badly. It overheated nonstop. It had a little bit of rust, but wasn't too bad. You know,
the hood was held down with a ratchet strap.
God, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
$1,800. This dude wanted $2,000 for it. We got him negotiated to $1,800.
Fuck.
We offered him like $1,250 or $1,300 or something like that to start with, and he's like, "No, I want $2,000." Okay, what about $1,500? I could maybe swing $19. He's like, "I literally have $1,800. This is all I have," and that alone
It's like, okay.
is what got us to drive that pile home. We got it from Boonville to Chandler, and that bitch was buried in the red overheating.
Shit.
And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take this rag and I'm gonna pop the radiator open.
Oh no.
So I said, waited. I was like, oh shit, it actually
Yeah,
has
that's
coolant
why.
in it. What?
Point of advice: that's why you don't immediately stick your face over an open radiator when you're doing that, because you will get third-degree burns on your face.
Yeah, I got it on my hand a little bit, and it was pretty warm.
I did that one
But
night in
the
my
thermostat
Subaru
did
when it was
not
at
open,
250,
so
and I was
it's
tired of trying to burp it. So I pulled it back into my garage, popped the fucking hood up, grabbed a rag and stuck it over the radiator cap, and like hid behind the hood and ripped it open, and it shot coolant everywhere in my garage.
Yeah.
See, his car, it didn't really shoot it everywhere because it was low on coolant, and it wasn't that hot because the thermostat simply didn't open. So that's why it always overheated. But it probably had a quarter of the coolant it should have had in there. You know?
Jesus Christ.
So I cracked her open, and it waited a second, and then it just shot out one stream onto like the fender and the ground and shit, and that was it. Like, it was not that much.
Also,
And then you look down in it, and it was like nothing.
Wallace, speaking of Fox bodies,
Fuckers,
there's something you
man.
might like.
Okay.
So you know the calendar, my car one,
Yes.
the
I saw the Fox
October,
body
for
on
October. Yeah, the next month over was a Sunset Orange Fox body that was LS swap. There's a Fox body in the Worldwide LS Owners calendar for 2020. It's right after my it's in November, which is right after October, which is where my car is.
Oh yeah, Kalen got a picture of his car in a calendar, by the way.
Wow, he's so fucking
They
cool.
sold 3,000 copies of that calendar in 2 days.
And how much money
Fuck
of that
that
do you
guy.
get?
I got notoriety.
Oh,
That
all right.
is
Oh, who gives a fuck?
I know of at least 7
Not
people.
me.
I know of at least 7 people across the world who have my car as the background on their computer.
Wow,
Well,
seven.
aren't they cool?
That's almost double digits, bud.
And how many people have your truck on their calendar?
None.
Exactly.
There's a, well, it's probably
Sorry,
not.
peasant, I don't speak broke.
Hey now.
Your Subaru does that.
That said, at one point there was a picture of that truck on Killboy's website, Tail of the Dragon, where you can pretty well see that if one of the front tires is not completely off the ground, it's pretty damn close.
I've seen that picture. It's
all the body roll.
That's how you get notoriety on
Give me a
tape.
second.
Bring something that
That's all?
shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
On
And
this
that was
page
fun. I
that
actually
I've
earned
been
a lot
sharing,
of respect
that's
from
all.
Pat after
On
that
this
weekend,
page.
because I was, granted, they were all driving pretty
Where's
slow,
it
except for
at?
Zach Willis, because he's a fucking madman.
Dude, that guy is. He is straight up.
But granted, nobody was really trying to go that fast, but I was still keeping up with everybody else in, like, Subarus and
This
stuff.
is the first one.
Not
Idiot.
very well, but
Anyway.
I, like, managed it.
For a Ford Sport Track.
139.
Yes.
Hustling.
A two-wheel drive, open diff, light-duty truck on leaf springs and torsion bars with all the body roll. Barking tires at about every corner, going about 10 over the speed limit.
So do you call your truck modified?
No, it's completely bone stock.
Yeah.
Because A, it's not technically my truck, so I don't want to modify it, and also B, I'm broke.
And I don't know how many mods there are for a Ford Sport Track.
Not a lot. There's and this is a strong maybe, like exhaust manifolds, cold air intake. There's some suspension stuff, but that is about it. Which kind of circles back to the question of what counts as modified. Because really it depends on the car, because some things, like my truck that I'm driving right now, there's really not a whole hell of a lot. But compare that to like a Honda Civic, where there's like all kinds of shit that you can put on to modify.
Any bolt that's ever been taken off a Honda Civic has been replaced and completely, whatever part that is remanufactured.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to worry about finding parts for a Honda Civic.
Yeah. Well, and also it's like they and still make so many of them.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the term dinosaurs lightly, but it's pretty accurate when it comes to those cars, and a lot of other cars too.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way it is. And I mean, like you're saying, there's not really a whole lot of
I don't
modifications
fucking
for that
care.
thing, unless you wanted to like frame swap it with like a Ranger
Yeah.
F-150 to where you can actually.
Well, there were a couple of companies that made like long travel kits for those, because a lot of guys would like V8 swap them and turn them into pre-runners, which I thought was really badass at one
Hey,
point.
Pre-Runner's a killer.
But then again, it's like $500-600 for fiberglass over fenders, and like
And
there's a whole lot of modification you got to do for
I've
long
looked at the
travel.
cost of like pre-runner like suspension setups. Insane.
Yeah.
It's like you think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like build this little sports car and like do track stuff. It's like, and you think, oh, that could get expensive. No. Pre-runner stuff.
Like off-road
is
Baja guy
expensive.
stuff, that stuff gets expensive really quick. We're talking like off the top of my head probably, but if you buy a nice set of King shocks, it's like several $1,000s.
I looked at what it would cost for me to get a long travel, like not even a full long travel, like a mid-level travel kit for my Tahoe.
Yeah.
Like shock, suspension, control arms, all that stuff. It was $12,000.
Exactly. That's more than
For
most.
the front suspension alone.
Yeah.
I still have a 150,000 mile leaky LS powering this thing.
Yeah.
But I'd have that suspension on it.
What, your Tahoe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rear end seal let go within the last 1,000 miles, so it's leaking a lot
Shit.
more now.
Which seal?
Rear main.
Oh, fuck.
I mean,
It's an easy job, but you got to take everything apart.
That's
Not
the
so
relevant
easy.
term.
Well, I mean, is the act of replacing the actual seal is easy. It's
Getting
taking
to
out
it
the
is a
exactly.
nightmare.
Getting to it, no.
Yeah, getting
If
to
it-
it, you
if
got
it's
to
a
drop the
manual-
transmission, torque
Okay.
converter.
really the big question with that car is basically what goes first. Does the transmission let go, and do I do remain while I'm putting in just a holdover 4L60 in there?
Junkyard transmission, yeah.
Or does the motor light go first, and then it's like 604L80?
Transmission's
jump
going to go
out.
first.
It's a 5.3, dude.
Your 460 will go before your 5.3 will.
Well, this 5.3 hasn't had a great life.
Who
They
cares?
don't have. They last forever though.
Who cares? Yank
So-
it out, put it in a Fox, and go fast.
There's more bits in the oil, or the oil changes that I would like to see in there.
Put some Marvel Mystery oil in there.
Marvel Mystery Oil or some of that Lucas stabilizer?
Both. That's what I run in my Camaro.
Or Cameron. Here's an interesting thought. Take the 5.3 out of your Tahoe, fix it up, put it in
I
your
run the
Mata.
stabilizer in there because it's got a pan leak, and then I run the Marvel Mystery oil.
See, I would like that.
Stabilizer is
I'm sure you would.
But that's a $15,000 swap to do right.
Well, I'm
To do right.
530
Yeah.
my
And I like
right
to
now.
do-
I'm
Is it
at
really that
540
much?
Royal
You can
Purple
do-
with the stabilizer in it.
You can do a LS Miata for cheaper than that,
Right.
Top oil leaks.
but to do
Stop
it
burning oil,
well,
too.
it's around the $15,000.
But I ran the Marvel
mark.
Mysterio and
You know, doing all the fittings, oiling,
Yeah.
you know, mounts,
leak or a lifter cap. So
you know,
Mr.
getting a
Still
transmission
made it
because
so
we're
it
doing
was
a
exhausted.
356,
Diagnostic.
T56.
T56, yeah.
No,
You're gonna
when
be
my
back
timing
like
chain noise
$2,500. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have
I was
two people
on
with
5W20
T56s here having their own
well,
conversation. You can tell us the cost.
Nope, his does not have a
T56.
T56.
Oh, wait, no, that's right.
His
Yours is
Camaro's
not.
automatic.
Mine's got a
I
built
keep,
460 in it.
thinking
Built.
yours is a T56.
It is fully built.
I have a
I know.
T56.
What's the cost of a
Shit.
T56 right now?
Cost?
Yeah.
Magnum or regular?
Let's just say for the sake
A
of...
Magnum transmission from my Monster Dom.
Shut the fuck
Stop.
up. Magnum, which everybody wants, or just the regular T56? And then are we talking new or used?
Let's assume this is going into a Miata, working non-Magnum.
T56 swap the
And it's used?
Sure.
If
But
you're
in
on
good,
that
in
far-
good condition.
Probably about 2 to 25.
Yeah, for a used one. Say it's a rebuilt one.
Rebuilt, you're gonna be closer to the 25 to 28 range, and brand new, I've seen them as high as 3. Some guys are cheaper.
Yeah.
And
So-
then the Magnum you can get for 3,200, so you might as well get the Magnum. But that's
Or you could get a CDO9, which holds for what you would be doing in the
Which would
Miata,
be like
which would
350
be
horsepower.
yeah, which is more
Or-
than enough for that transmission.
Or you cannot
And that
listen to
platform.
that jack dick and buy a 700 foot-pound rated Magnum T56 and call it a day. So then you can slap turbos on that bitch and send it.
Yeah, but I still have a leaky LS. This really nice transmission.
Are you talking
Who
about the
gives a
Miata
fuck?
or the Tahoe?
Well, this would be Miata. He had it like,
5.3
why don't you
swap
put
the
an
Miata.
LS in the Miata? I was like, it's about 15
Why
grand
didn't you
to
put
do
the Tahoe's
white.
drivetrain in the
Yeah.
Miata? And the Miata's drivetrain in the Tahoe.
That would make literally no sense.
I mean, I would be pegging the 1.6 in the Tahoe. If I Miata swapped the Tahoe, the 1.6 in the Miata would be like stuck in fourth because I'm not going to be able to use fifth.
No.
Let's just be real.
No.
I'd be pegging fourth at like 7,000 RPM just to get to like,
40 miles an hour,
Yeah.
probably.
you know, like.
Yeah, but it sounded like hell while you were doing it.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, I look like a hovercraft because like the driveline is just that much more narrow. Just like
Yeah.
Just add some Wu-Tang war whistles to it and equal it all out.
Well, really, you could only add 1 to a 1.6. But...
Oh, no. If there's a will, there's a way.
Okay.
You can never have enough boost.
Yeah, until Uncle Rodney comes knocking.
with the 1.6, Rodney comes knocking fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the meme the other day of the Hot Pockets? But it was like SR20 DET flavored.
No.
it was like hot. It was like Rod Knockets.
Oh,
SR20
God
DET
damn it.
flavored crust.
Yikes!
Jesus.
Bet that tastes like old cigarette butts.
Jeez.
And soy
It's not
sauce.
tastes like Michigan rust.
Ask
Michigan
Henry.
rust.
His red car is bad.
Okay. Well, I have basically one last question that I kind of lined up thinking
No.
as far as... No?
The answer's no.
The answer is no.
Oh no. Eat shit.
Eat shit. Okay, well, that's a good answer to that question.
Alright, continue.
Yeah. So basically, the question was, what do you think the big theme of the 2010s? Because it's the start of 2020. What do you think the biggest theme of that car-wise?
Are we talking just like trends? Or.
I'm biased.
Take with it what you will. Just
2010. The biggest trend of the 2010s was max speeding rods. Coilovers.
They don't sponsor us anymore. You can't keep giving them
Exactly.
You
New
can't-
decade, new sponsor.
You can't keep giving them free publication. You gotta make them earn it. Make them want us.
Okay. So,
But yeah. So basically, the biggest theme of the 2010s, and then what is going 2020s gonna be?
Honestly, based on what I saw, like in terms of motorsport world, drifting like really exploded in the last 10 years.
can I confirm?
Yeah.
And now it's all electric cars.
Okay. I'm pretty biased because I'm not 100% stuck in the muscle car world, but if you even call Mustangs and Camaros muscle cars, they're really pony cars, but that's fine. You get what I'm saying.
They're about the closest you can really get now.
Well, technically, the Challenger is still in
That's-
the muscle car class.
Charger.
as well. Well,
But
But it's
iffy.
also a sedan, which
Iffy.
technically isn't a
Yeah,
muscle
that's
car.
really
Yeah.
iffy.
Well, actually,
Technically.
when you get
Technically.
technical, sedans were muscle cars.
No, I get that. That's what I'm saying. Technically.
Yeah.
Alright, fuck the technicalities. I'm in the muscle car world, so I'm pretty fucking biased, but like 2010 was really the start of a lot of horsepower wars.
yeah.
Really. Because in 03 and 04, we had the Terminator Cobra. Fantastic car. I mean, I own one. I fucking love it. We had the LS1 Camaro and WS6 and stuff, and they were competing.
Oh yeah, that was the same decade, dude.
hmm They were
Wow.
competing.
Yeah, it's weird.
And-
That's weird. That's a completely different era of vehicle for me
Yeah.
than like the newer ones, but it's still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
And
that's
they
nuts.
were going hard, and then the Camaro and WS6 dropped off the face of the earth, and the Terminator Cobra stopped production in 04. So from there, we just had our shitty 3-valve 4.6s that didn't make any fucking horsepower because we had no competition. You know, the Camaro was gone, and the Camaro came back in, what, 2010?
It was 09 or 10, something
Yeah, it
like
was
that.
10 because it was 8 years between.
Yeah, I'm
production.
thinking-
Just try to think whenever the first Transformers movie came out, and that was right about the time when the Camaro came back.
I dropped the 5th gen. I love the 5th gens, but they're not really Camaros.
Anyway.
That's a bold. I'm gonna get off on that here in a minute.
Okay.
That's a bold statement, but I've got facts to back that up. All right.
Okay. So in 2010, the Camaro came back. In 2010, the Mustang was still on its fuck shit with the 3-valve 4.6, which again, fucking garbage, but that's fine. 2011, the Mustang and Ford, they came out with the Coyote engine, and it was back at the horsepower wars. Up until present day, I mean, we had the Hellcat, the Demon, ZL1, GT500s.
I think in terms of that horsepower war, the Demon was definitely the defining point of all of
Defining point, but what sucks is it was
the-
a limited run thing.
Yes,
What
was.
sucks to me is it was the most horsepower, but it also weighed the most.
Yeah.
Well, it's less than a Hellcat, but barely.
Yeah.
Barely.
200
They
pounds.
shaved, they even got rid of the SRT.
And that was also
Brembos
after
on
you
it,
got
and
the
it still
special
wasn't
race
enough
edition
to be,
pack, which
like,
eliminated
lower
a
than
bunch
the
of
other
shit.
car.
And the great, the Demon, they claim it to run stock a 9, which I guess in very extremely rare circumstances it
In a
can
very
happen.
ideal set of
Yeah, because
conditions.
they basically said, like, there's
Even
no way
with
we
that,
can get this to 9.
There's an ongoing Chrysler investigation because the rear ends keep blowing up
Yeah.
on the Demons.
They explode.
They had 4 of them blow up in the same track at the same day,
Mhm.
and they started an open investigation to figure out why. I could have told you why, because you put 800 horsepower on sticky tires on a prep track
On a stock rear
and
end.
launched it with
What
an
is basically a stock
independent stock rear end.
Yeah,
too.
that's how you
Yeah.
break axles.
But back to my point, we have the GT500 and at its prime before 2020 GT500, it made 662. There was the ZL1 that made 650, Hellcat that made 707, and they're all great cars. I mean, fuck the Chrysler stuff, it's way too heavy, but
Yeah, I agree. Fuck Chrysler.
fuck Chrysler.
Yeah.
In my eyes, the Camaro and the Mustang were the two heads there.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree.
And the Mustang, it had terrible gearing for quarter mile and stuff, but it was a 200 mile an hour car, which is absolutely insane out of a muscle car.
Especially for something from the factory.
Yeah, 200 mile an hour. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, Motor Trend tried to test it, and I think they ran like 198 or 199 or something like that. They couldn't replicate the 200 mile an hour, but in the same breath, 198 mile an hour in a fucking Mustang. Of
Yeah,
all
198 miles an hour and 200 miles an hour don't really feel that much different.
No, it's like,
No.
if you're going 60, do you feel 62?
No,
No, but
not at all.
in a Mustang, solid axle Mustang, like you got some balls, but
Yeah.
that's besides the point.
But
you know?
also, that's kind of limiting it just to the American market, because obviously you got like the Bugatti Veyron and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's hitting,
but
like,
here's the
250.
thing. You can have these
But that's like a $5
GT500s
million car.
less than 100K.
Exactly.
Not the new GT500.
No, of course.
The older GT500s, you can have them under 100K.
Yeah.
You go look at one of these Veyrons, you're in the millions.
Exactly.
So-
easily in the millions.
Easily. So,
And then the C8 Corvette too is like base model $60,000, still putting out like
435, but they're very fast.
because mid-engine,
Mid-engine,
weight
gearing is
distribution.
awesome. Their weight distribution, it's a very good car. I like that car a lot, but I've always loved
Basically an
Corvettes.
entry-level supercar from the American
Yeah,
market.
essentially, it's what the NSX should have been when it came back.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I agree.
Or the Ford GT instead of being a $500,000.
I
Those
will
new-
say,
I like
those-
the Ford GT.
I do
as it
too.
the
is.
Ford
I
GT
really
is
do.
a
Gorgeous.
fantastic car.
With a
Fantastic.
really stupid gimmick behind it, like, you guys can't sell our cars.
Yeah, I think
gotta
Ford
drive it.
really fucked up there. That I am a fucking Ford
Well,
guy.
They
Like,
kind of
people-
tried to go to the Ferrari route with it, where it's like a certain level of exclusivity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
Which
annoying.
is not really how you sell cars like that.
One of the problems I have is people always try to compare the GT and the Corvette. They were
No.
never ever
No.
competitors.
No.
The GT, like the Chevy Corvette's competitor was the Ford Thunderbird.
Yes.
Yes.
And it dropped off the face of the earth after dying a slow, drug-out, painful death over several
Not
decades.
as bad as the Cougar, though.
No, you're not wrong on that.
The Cougar had a worse death.
But
Yes,
The
I
Novas
agree.
was bad too.
from
Novas
the
was also
start,
not great.
from the start, the Thunderbird was a spectacular car, and then they drug its death out over decades of making it nothing,
Yeah.
and then it finally became a passenger civilian car that was junk, and then it finally died.
That said, the latest edition Thunderbirds, I still think they look kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
throwback.
they're
body.
retro.
For the time,
It's a
but they're not
throwback
great
body
cars.
style
Yeah.
done right.
No, I'm not saying
They're not great
I've
cars,
never
but they
driven
look
one.
cool. They're
I think the Jaguar
It's
is
the-
pretty, which is all
Oh,
I
you
can
mean the
say
Ford
about
PT
not wanting to
Cruiser.
own one.
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Looks
yeah.
cool. I don't think the PT.
No, I agree
looks
with
cool.
you
I don't
on that too,
Good
Kalen. Like the
answer.
GT compared to the Corvette, because I mean the original GT40, that was a purpose-built race
It
car
was an
built by
actual-
Ford and Shelby
Yeah,
for
to take
Le Mans.
on Le Mans and
beat-
Ferrari.
Beat
Yeah.
the fucking Ferrari, you know.
Which fuck Ferrari anyway, Lamborghini gang.
Fucking.
Have you guys seen that movie
Lamborghini
Ford vs.
gang.
Ferrari?
I have
Exactly.
not gotten to yet.
I haven't either. It sounds really good.
It is really good.
I've heard it's absolutely excellent, and I never made time to watch it. So
I haven't yet either.
I'm a
I
I was
was
saying,
that.
we need to watch that one weekend.
Wait, none of you seen it?
812
No.
watch party for
I never made time
Ferrari?
to see it.
Yeah,
I'm always
you do that.
working on
It's
my
really
shit.
good.
guys.
It's really good.
Somebody get a projector and we'll get like a bed sheet or something hanging up there and have like a movie night down here.
But back to
But we
my
digress.
point.
Yeah.
Back to my point. I think the horsepower wars are going to continue getting even higher. Now
Yeah.
we have the GT500 and 760. I'm ecstatic to see where the ZL1's going to go, and like the ZR1 Corvette, and
Yeah.
I don't really think the
And
GT's.
keep
that-
in mind,
okay,
these
I
are
got a
still just
question
like
for
factory
anybody
cars.
who-
Imagine if someplace like Hennessy gets a hold of one of the new
That's
GT500s.
where I'm going with this question. Do you consider the Hennessy Exorcist a factory car?
No, it's
I
not.
don't consider anything Hennessy.
Because-
But
Also,
Hennessy
fuck
is not
Hennessy.
directly related to GM.
but
Fuck
you
Hennessy.
can like an SLP edition car is considered a factory car, but it's got base aftermarket modifications.
But that's a little bit different. With the SLP, it's a different lid, cam, really not much else. Tune,
But
exhaust.
It's a performance
At
package.
the same
Hennessy,
time-
they're throwing fucking turbskis on it, bigger supercharger, whatever,
It's
full
just-
body kit, tires, they're building the whole car.
Yeah.
to me,
all
I consider it a factory option because you can go to a dealership and order that car.
But
Here's
I
all
wouldn't
I have to say
consider it a
about
factory option because it's going through to an independent thing outside of the manufacturer.
That's what SLP did.
Yeah,
But-
and like you can have the same argument with Shelby cars.
That's true. You could.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hennessy's just such a bigger thing than the Shelby treatment. It goes from a GT8 to a GT500.
Yeah.
And the GT500 is sold through Ford, so on and so forth. The SLP cars, same story. Goes to SLP, get some shit done. Not a whole fucking lot in the SLP's case. Shelby, even then, not a whole.
But yeah, no,
lot.
it's the-
depending on the year. Not
It's
a whole lot.
those shops doing it for the manufacturer, so the manufacturer can continue to sell. The difference between that and Hennessy is selling them as Hennessy products. They're not giving them back to the dealership.
No, you can order a Hennessy Exorcist through a GM dealer.
but it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Because it's like those things like over at Romania right now. It's like those Black Widow cars. It's like they're still GMC Sierras, but they're also Black Widows. And they sent them off to go get that treatment done. Then they're being sold off the dealership lot.
Yeah.
It's not a GM package.
To me, I
You're
consider
buying it through a
it.
GM dealer.
To me, I
Yeah.
consider it a dealership, a factory car. Not factory as in stock, but factory as in
I can't.
you
I
can
don't
go
think so.
through a direct GM dealership and order that vehicle with those options at that dealership. You don't have to take it somewhere and modify it aftermarket.
Yeah, but you're not
It's
going to get that
still-
stuff under GM warranty.
No.
Oh yeah, GM warranty, no way.
Yeah, so I mean, then it's not a factory car.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'd have to go with
Actually,
that.
yeah, that's a
If
pretty
it's-
good metric. If it's
factory
covered by the
warranty-
factory warranty, then it's not. Then it's actual like factory stuff. But if it's not covered by the warranty, then that's somebody else messing with it.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can buy a brand new Jeep Wrangler and have it modified by that dealership with parts you ordered from that dealership and it void the warranty.
What?
Huh?
Chrysler?
If you go through like Expressway Dodge right now, buy a brand new Gladiator, you can get a lift kit and everything put on it and it'll void the warranty before you even leave the lot with it.
Even if it's the
Dealership put it on.
dealer certified mechanic does it.
Yep.
That's
That's Chrysler
fucking
for you.
stupid.
That's Chrysler.
That's
I mean-
every dealer.
Chrysler.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, not necessarily, because with the Mustangs, if you got a Roush supercharger put on at a dealership, then that was still covered by warranty.
The Roush
yeah, I know
jackhammer,
all
that's
the GM
factory
accessories
warranty.
are always covered because you could get like Brembo brake upgrades for fucking any car over there.
Yeah,
and it's
that's-
covered in a factory warranty.
Yeah.
That's a gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It really is a
very
gray
Oh,
area.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
rare. I'm not going to argue
absolutely.
that. But kind of going back to like the topic, it's like I'm totally in line with you as far as the 2010s. It's like horsepower wars because you think like you're saying start of the 2010 Mustang had a 300 horsepower 3-valve 4.6.
Mm-hmm. And then
2019
Chevy came with the LS, and now we're here.
Yeah.
But see, at the same time, I'm seeing the other side where electric vehicles are becoming more popular.
Well, that's
Yeah.
2020.
Even
I'm
in
still saying 2019.
Even in
Well,
performance motorsports.
even still back in the last 10 years, like obviously Tesla took off.
Within the
Yeah.
last 3 years, like Tesla, and I've seen a significant amount increase in electric motor swaps on performance vehicles. Like, there's actually an article I read the other day on whether or not drift cars should be allowed to have electric motors, because
Yeah, I saw that article.
It's all
defeats
instant
the
torque.
purpose. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
instant torque. It allows them to spin the tires and have a more controllable spin while they're drifting, which in competitive drifting events is a big
That's
thing.
critical.
It's borderline
Yeah.
cheating.
Yeah. Because that's kind of where I was thinking that like the 2020s are going to go. I think we're going to start seeing like maybe not so much pure electric swaps, but like almost like a gear vendors like on your
Yeah.
drive shaft basically, where you can just
Yeah.
have an electric motor. You can kick in like nitrous effectively.
Yeah, we have to
Get
look at the
speed and just
decade as in
go.
two
Yeah.
separate things too. Within the trend of the decade for aftermarket and like personal modifications, and then factory vehicles, like what the major manufacturers' trend was versus what the average people's trend was throughout the decade.
Yeah.
Like motor swaps were a huge thing. In
Oh yeah, people
the
have been
2010s.
LS swapping everything.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen LS swap
Bobcats with
everything,
LS,
Coyote
go-karts.
swaps, fucking everything.
That go-kart is something else.
Dude, I saw a
I've seen
video.
a lot
Somebody,
of, a significant amount
somebody
of Subaru
put
swaps.
somebody
too.
put an LS3 in a Polaris Razor, and that just seems terrifying to me.
That sounds like a hell of a time.
It does,
Absolutely.
but
Let's go.
But it's just like, why?
Because
Because
they like to
because
party.
you can.
I mean,
it's
yeah.
some of these swaps are like they're like more like
They're common now.
yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
not even they're more like
10% of
they're
every Fox body has
workhorse
an LS in it.
swaps, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people swapping LS motors
And
into like
RX-7s.
construction vehicles
I'd
for the
argue
longevity
more
of the motor.
RX-7s.
Yeah,
And the
definitely.
ease of access to the parts.
Because apparently nobody wants to deal with rotaries anymore.
Yeah. And another thing, like
They make cool noises.
within the
They
last
do.
like 5 years, even I would
Oh,
say,
I have
there's
an
so
impact
much
at
just
work.
LS swap stuff out, like
Yeah.
computers, parts, swap kits, whatever you
Yeah,
need.
that's
It's
So
there.
Yeah.
because it's a Lego block of motors. Every LS motor has the same parts that fit each motor. It's,
Yeah.
they're individual. You can take every part.
Well, I think
almost
every single LS
part.
crank is the exact same.
Yeah, you can take almost every part of every LS motor and swap it onto another LS motor and it fits.
For the most part, yes.
For the most
I think the only caveat to that is like the LS4.
Well,
Because that's got
things
like a different basic blocks at the very back. For
well, there's two heads. There's the cathedral port heads and then rectangle port heads.
Yeah.
You have to swap those.
You have to
individually.
keep
There's
the
conversion
intake
kits and adapters
But-
that fit them.
But
though.
that's just a matter of fitting like air intakes and shit.
yeah.
it was so physically bulked up, it just won't
Yeah.
run right.
Also,
Yeah.
the greatest innovation in motors, like my personal favorite innovation in motor history, was the 6-bolt main bearings that LS Motors put out. That
Beefy.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they can handle 1,500 horsepower on the stock truck motor, bottom end. That's like a massive innovation. 60 years ago, if you dropped that off, they'd burn you at the stake for like you were a witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will agree. The motor swap trend is getting huge.
And
You
it's
know?
not even just limited to like LS V8s. I've seen
No, it's all over the place.
No, I mean on the other side,
Like-
Ford Coyote swaps. It's the same thing. I'm seeing
Lamborghini
swap
swaps,
headers.
Ferrari
I'm
swaps.
seeing
Well, I mean,
computers.
Ryan Turk.
that's one right there. That's a Ferrari 458 motor in a GT86.
Yep.
that
Now,
thing's
granted-
badass.
Granted,
Have you guys
they have a
seen the
lot of
Ferrari
money
swap
behind
motor?
Oh,
making that
for
happen.
sure. Yeah.
I think it's a twin turbo Ferrari or Lamborghini motor in a 60s model Mustang.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
that's a Ferrari
fucking-
motor.
Have you
Awesome.
seen somebody who swapped 1,000 cubic inch Ford Sherman tank motor into a 64 Mustang?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
It was
Oh
not
my
even close
God.
to functional.
Oh, I'm
They
sure
just
it's
like
not.
sawed
the
out
car was
everything.
the size of the motor they put in there.
God
Oh, it was huge.
damn.
But it was
Absolutely
goddamn
ridiculous.
beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was ridiculous.
Jeez.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's been a huge part of the 2010s. Is just like people just taking shit to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like not just another level, the
Like
extreme.
taking
Yeah.
a bunch of shit that shouldn't fit on a car and making it
It
fit.
begs,
500 horsepower is not a big number anymore.
No, it's
No.
really not.
No,
It begs
it's
the
not.
classic
In
question:
2010.
has science gone too far?
Absolutely not.
Have we reached that Jurassic Park moment where it's like you scientists stop?
They were so
much time
concerned with
God.
whether or not they could. They didn't stop to think if
whether-
they should.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
No, it's okay. Like in the early 2000s, the let's say 400 horsepower the early LS1s and the Terminator covers were making. It was fucking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In like 2000 to 2005, that's a lot.
Well, a Gen 1 and 2 Vipers with 400 horsepower, and,
Yeah.
they just, nobody knew how to handle that.
yeah, and everybody thought that was
They were
insane.
just sliding all over the place.
And now you look at them, and
Like
most
the
guys,
snake the car was named after. It all makes sense now.
and now most guys they just scoff at like 700-800 horsepower. Like if you're not in the 4 digits, you aren't shit.
Hashtag Todd
Yeah.
Guthrie.
Okay, but
But also
1300 horsepower in 6 gears. Shut up.
going off of that too, though, is if you think about it, and within the last 10 years, the just sheer amount of technological advance there's been in vehicles compared to 10 years ago has
Yeah.
like
the-
all like the nanny systems, like traction control and stability, electronic stability control, and all that stuff.
Who needs it?
I mean,
I
I'm not saying you need it,
I
but
don't
I'm saying
have
it's
it.
I
like
didn't either. Mine had like Camaro doesn't have. it
It's
from
a
the
lot of
factory.
stuff
no
like-
ABS, no traction control.
it's a lot of stuff like that though that has made all these ridiculously high horsepower cars a lot easier for people to drive.
Yeah. So like, there's a grandma. We were talking today with the SRT. There's an SRT Durango that came into work, and one of the technicians said every time one of them comes in there, the first thing they do is check the highest, like the top speed logger, because it has a data logger on there that'll tell you the car's top speed, its track times, everything. They always do that. They said there was one old lady who drove one into there, and her top speed was like 150 miles per hour.
I
She
guarantee
didn't
you.
do
I
this.
guarantee you, her grandson stole
Yeah,
that shit.
that was a hot car.
I
whenever that
guarantee.
pass was made. That car was not
No,
meant to
no,
go
that
that fast.
that was little Johnny asking Grandma if he could take the Durango out for drinks or something.
That was
Can I take the
that was
Durango
little-
to prom?
That was Johnny thinking, you know what? I didn't strap my father's truck bumper to his other van. I'm gonna just go race the Durango.
Good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Good times indeed.
But no, there is a lot of innovations in vehicle that you see a lot of it on the dealership side of it, where you see the new things as they come out, and you have to learn to adapt to those.
Yeah.
And almost everything is computer controlled now, and it's a nightmare when something goes wrong.
And honestly, that's why a lot of guys our age and like other people in cars, they buy all the older shit because it's less shit that they got to deal with.
That's
I
exactly
get
where
that.
I'm at.
Like
Yeah, that's
through
where I'm
working
gonna be
there,
at too.
like there have been people, the older guys that are like, well, you can just plug it up to a computer; it'll tell you what's wrong.
That's not
that's-
always the case.
Those systems fail more commonly than you'd ever possibly imagine. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a vehicle with an issue. You go to scan it, and you go through, like, the diagnostic procedures from Chrysler. Everything passes. It's not throwing anything wrong. Like, it's obvious something's wrong, but it's not telling you anything, any signs of what's wrong with it. So you have to go old school with it, and it's hard to do that on these new computer-controlled vehicles. It's hard to bring old school technology and mentality into the newer vehicles and expect it to work. But that's what you have to do a lot of the time.
Well, because
So-
a motor is still a motor,
Yeah.
regardless
Oh, yeah.
of whether it's a 350 from 1955 or it's a brand new whatever the hell you want to find in any new car. It's still a motor. It still follows the same basic principles.
Air, fuel, spark. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just how
unless it's
it would
hybrid or
like
electrical.
compression, but that's quite. That's,
Well,
Who
I
needs
mean, we're
compression?
talking like
We
bare
got
bones
turbos for that.
basic.
hey, you got boost. You
We're
got-
talking like lowest common denominator, though.
Yeah.
The rotary.
Well,
Jesus
maybe.
Christ.
The
We'll
rotary.
leave compression at a maybe.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. As long as you got a majority of the
Hey,
cylinders,
if you
it's
put
fine,
some
right?
oil in it and it picks up compression, you're all right.
Some oil,
Yeah, if you drip a little bit of oil in there and it gets a little bit of compression, from
precisely 4
it,
drops.
she'll fucking run. Alright, I promise.
Her
Fuckers
reason is very
man.
precise.
Your rings are shot, but she'll run.
All the blow by.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Make your oil pan look like a tsunami hit it.
Oh god. Looks like somebody spilled a chocolate milkshake in your oil pan.
Man,
I've seen that. That's not a fun
It's,
time.
no, it's not.
no, it's straight up not a good time.
Try pulling a motor apart that's had that happen in it. It's
I-
not a fun time.
I don't want to think about it.
That was a
honestly.
great time. What are you talking about? Oh, gosh. It's your turn to answer the question.
What?
Horsepower wars?
No, I said
Engine
drifting at the
swaps?
beginning for motorsport.
Yeah, I think we all kind of threw in pieces of that one.
Yeah, see, I
As
think
we-
all of ours
You gotta
go
remember
jointly
I'm stupid.
together because his was the dealership, like his was the manufacturer side of it. Mine was the like civilian side of it.
And mine was the motorsport, although we didn't really touch on that a whole lot. But
I mean, like you said, it was drifting. It's like drifting has absolutely exploded. Like if
Yeah.
you asked me, shit, 5 years ago, if you think
Literally,
if
it
you really know what
exploded.
drifting is, I'd be like, I do not need for speed.
Yeah,
You-
exactly.
you
Like
kick it
if you
sideways.
ask someone like
yeah, there's
10
a Tokyo Drift movie about that.
that too. That was the other thing I was gonna say. It's like if you had asked that, it's like, oh well, yeah, I do that in video games, and there was that one Fast and Furious movie.
See, I noticed like motorsports follow popular culture a lot. Like it's typical. Like the popular culture for equivalent of whatever it is the trend that it follows generally.
Yeah.